Hi.
Hi, beautiful.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on
Thanks for
and hanging
having
out with
me.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Do you
I
understand
hope,
how excited I was to read your book?
I hope
yeah.
I hope you liked it. So
I loved it.
It was on her TBR forever because I was like, this is like a book boyfriend you have to read. Like Silas, like you just
yes.
have to read him.
Yeah, Silas. Oh, it was funny because like when I did for the street team, I was like, do your favorite character. Like Silas, like won out, like hands down. Like I think that there was a handful who did Brielle. There was one Vincent. I think there was like a handful of Ariana's, but mostly it was like Silas, which I can't blame them. I can't blame them. I mean, I tried to make him like an excellent book boyfriend.
You did a fantastic job.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you've seen in my email, I was like, Silas is still one of my favorite book boyfriends.
I know, I saw that at the end. I was like, I'm so glad.
All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started.
Yay.
So, do you want to tell us like a brief overview of the book?
Yeah, so Unmasking the Curse is a Beauty and the Beast reimagined, set in a Pride and Prejudice-esque world where the main character is bound to an enchanted porcelain mask to keep her destructive blight at bay, and everything is kind of up in the air. She's set to wed a venomous man for the sake of her destitute sister. Then everything changes when a handsome stranger, Mr. Silas Belmont, walks into town with a deeper knowledge of her curse and dark secrets of his own.
Love it.
Love it. Okay, so what made you want to write fantasy?
I think that when I really was thinking about the book, like this book actually came from like a piece of poetry I wrote. So I started writing poetry and I was writing about how I felt trapped behind a mask. Like I had to pretend I was someone I wasn't. And I was like, how interesting would it be if it wasn't like this metaphorical mask, but if it was like a physical mask? And once I realized that, I was like, well, I guess it has to be fantasy. I guess that's the way the book has to go. And so it kind of just naturally took that progression of me like writing out like, well, what would that look like? And what is she hiding behind the mask? And there were many drafts to get like all to get everything like all kind of like figured out of exactly like what the power was and what she was dealing with and what Silas was dealing with and kind of like doing all the setup for the subsequent books. So
That's amazing. I really want to know what inspired. I know that Pride and Prejudice and the Beauty and the Beast retelling is kind of what really inspired it, but what inspired like Ariana's story?
Ariana is a lot of me. Like honestly, Ariana's personality is a lot of me just like wanting to describe like my life, like how I like my life experience to some degree, like wanting to describe like my feelings. And like at the time I was coming out of like postpartum depression. I had my daughter in 2020. Don't recommend having a new baby in a pandemic. Not fun. And there was just a lot of like, I think the world is a really challenging place for a lot of people at the time. And there was just a lot of things that kind of like dominoed and happened in 2020. And I think that when I sat down and started writing, I really needed somewhere to process my feelings in a safe space. And that's kind of how Ariana came about. And it was really me processing a lot of the feelings I had about myself and a lot of the feelings I was dealing with from, the ramifications of like 2020 and just other things I've dealt with throughout my life.
I mean, that's a great inspiration considering we were all in masks at that point.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Yeah. I actually never made that correlation until you said it. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
We were all behind masks at that point.
We're all behind masks. Yeah.
Trying not to get a plague.
Yeah.
So that's great. So would you consider this a retelling of Beauty and the Beast or a reimagining? How do you market it?
So I've been marketing it as a reimagining. And the funny thing is that when I wrote it, I was going for a Pride and Prejudice vibe, but I actually wasn't going for Beauty and the Beast. I didn't realize it was Beauty and the Beast until my beta readers were like, this is Beauty and the Beast, right? And I was like, No, like not at all. Like didn't even like cross my mind. And so because what happened was when I had beta readers, I was like, what does this remind you of? And like the common thread I kept getting was like it reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. I had a couple people say it had like an ACOTAR vibe. I had a couple people say it reminded them of Victoria Avongrade's like the Queen book. I can't remember what it is, but there's like a YA book that has like powers and stuff like that. And then so when I advertisement, I usually call it a Beauty and the Beast reimagined, right? Because they're both the Beauty and the Beast. Like there is a curse, but unlike Beauty and the Beast, like you can't break the curse; it's unbreakable. So I don't really find it a true beat for beat retelling. And even like book 2 is a Snow White reimagined, so it's not a beat for beat Snow White retelling. It is kind of like take some like poetic license and uses some of the beats of the story to set the bigger picture.
Was Beauty and the Beast like one of your favorite, like
Yes.
growing up? It was. That's probably where you got the touch of it in there.
Yeah, I probably was just like, I just love all these tropes and all these things, not realizing like that's what it was. It was just my love of Beauty and the Beast.
Wasn't that your favorite one growing up, Lizzie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yay!
So,
Mine
yeah.
was Snow White.
You're so Snow White? Oh, so me saying Snow White reimagined, like, yes.
That's why I was like, yes.
Yeah, I was a Belle girl. I love Belle. I remember like even when I was like 10 or 11, I was like still wearing that yellow dress.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I used to watch it all the time. It was definitely my favorite one. And I remember being playing in like the recess and being like, take me instead. Like we would play like Beauty and the Beast and I'd be like so over dramatic, like, no, like I will be, your captive. I was like, yeah, that didn't play out later in life, like reading like different types. Right. Wow.
Okay, so we had a moment, and then it was back to fighting the feeling of angst. Was incredible. Did that come naturally for all the characters, or were there particular ones that were more than others?
Like angsty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the angst just felt really natural. Like when I started writing, I think the thing is like I really think about like what would the characters do, right? Like how would they act in this situation? And like for Silas, he is very angsty. Like he is based off Mr. Darcy. Like I did like and like the best thing is like he like in anime, like there's like just this very specific type of like anime boyfriend where they're like hot and cold like all the time, right? And so like that was totally inspiration for Silas, is this hot and cold. So I think his angstiness just like worked for him perfectly. I think if he was like at all like any golden retriever or cinnamon roll, it wouldn't have worked. But I think that it for them it worked out really well. And like writing Brielle's story is so different because like it's less angsty because she's so straightforward, and like her love interest is a little bit less straightforward than she is, but like that's why it's a novella. Like there's a much quicker progression than like with Silas and Ariana, who are just so like lost and haven't had that kind of like connection before. So I thought it came naturally for them. Just all the angst.
Oh, the first time I read this book, I just remember thinking like, Silas, get it together. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He has avoidant attachment. Tell me you don't have avoidant attachment without telling me you have avoidant attachment.
Lizzie,
it's like-
Lizzie told me at one point, she was like, you're going to hate him, but
Yes.
then you're going to love him again. So it's okay. I'm just like, all right, I'm already feeling it, but okay.
Well, and I think like the hard thing about writing him, because like that pivotal scene, like in chapter 21, I think is the chapter where he makes his like declaration and everything changes. And it's like I had written some scenes after that. And the problem is I'm like where he was at emotionally, like I couldn't just be like fast forward and be like, okay, cool. Like, and like to me, it just didn't make very much sense to be like, okay, well, he's like really struggling with this. And then him to be like, okay, but also like, like have this like completely like different change because she was around now. And so it was like kind of hard because I felt like I had to work through both of them and like build them up, because like where they had their turning point, like they weren't there yet, right? Like if we're like, it's very interesting, like writing Brielle's story, it's like she's getting to those turning points so much faster because like there's already been like this work set behind her. Where like Silas, it was just like blank canvas. Like no relationships, nothing.
I was going to tell you, like, I love Beatrix's character too because she is the pushy sister, but that's what Silas needs. He needs the pushy sister because he's not going to do it by himself.
No.
So I love that about her.
Me too.
She was great. He's like, stop making it like some love story, and she's like, no, I won't.
Yeah,
Go find her.
No, and it's so funny, like, because I've been working on kind of like her, like a little short story for her, and then she's going to get a novella as well. And it's so interesting because like the end of her story in book one, it really changes some of her perspective. So she starts off a little bit jaded as well. And so like how she's approached things has kind of shifted because of her circumstances. So it's been really fun to like write through their growth pieces and then see like where people backslide and where they like keep pushing forward. I don't know. That's what I like to write about is like that emotional like development and growth.
Phil's trying to tell you that she traumatized everybody in the book.
Who traumatized everyone?
Oh, you traumatized everybody in the book.
I do.
All the characters traumatized.
Everyone is. Everyone leaves book one traumatized.
All right, where were we? Okay. The spice in this book is very intimate and sensual. And I love that about the book. Was that like a timepiece type deal? Is that why you did it? Or is that just like just the sweetness is what you love to write? I
think that's how they were. And like, it's so, like I said, it's just so interesting because I really try to get in the minds of my characters. And I like, you know, and I also think back to like that time of like, you know, that first time, right? And like how I don't really like, I think for like the time period and Ariana and her personality, it's like I didn't think it was going to be very full of schmink, if that makes any sense, you know? And so, and I'm also trying to be cautious with words because we're on the live, but where like maybe another character, like I could see Naomi having a lot more schmink in the future than like Ariana. And I think like Silas is just very respectful. And so I think that that's why I really leaned into that. And I think there was always this like desire, right? This like, but I think their desire was so much more than physical. Both of them were so like desperate for love, so desperate to have people see them that I think like I really wanted to lean into that like tenderness for them, where like other characters are probably not going to have like as much tenderness, right? Like because their personalities and what they're needing doesn't really match that. And I think that's really where it played in. And I will say even in book two, like that tenderness for them, I like doubled down on the tenderness because like I know some people are like not enough spice. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so tender. It's going to make you weep. I'm like,
I loved it because I felt like that was the characters. Like I felt like Silas would act like that, especially that, you know, first time, you know.
Yeah, and I think that I think he felt like a lot of responsibility, and I think through like a lot of what the characters are doing, a lot of the choices that they're making, which is why it takes me like forever to write books. But you know, and like I said, I even writing Brielle, like she has some spice in her book, and it's, you know, there is a little bit more tenderness to it, like but there is still like a very Brielle-esque vibe to it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she's still Brielle, like she's still gonna do her Brielle thing. And it's just writing her spice versus writing like Ariana and Silas's spice, writing like other character spice, because I have written other character spice, is so different. It's just, they're not it doesn't follow the same emotional beats.
I think when I did the review, I called it sprinkle spice. I'm like, it's sweet.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And it is sprinkled. And I think for me, it's like I write books with spice, which I do like both. Like I read everything. But for me, writing, it's books with spice. And it's like, does this spice have a purpose like in the book with their emotional development? Because like for me, the emotional development is like the forefront of the story. And so like, as long as the spice matches like the emotional development, then it makes sense to me for my writing. Now, do I read lots of books where whatever? Yes. And do I enjoy those books? Yes. For me as a writer, that's just how I write.
I loved it.
Okay, so we all know that you're very bubbly,
Yes.
very outgoing, and so we just wanted to know if it took a lot to manifest that Silas, broody kind of personality that he had.
Uh, so I think yes and no. Like I think the biggest thing is that there was a lot of rewrites with Silas of saying like, would he say this? Like, and there were some times where I wanted him to be more like forthcoming, but then I had to really sit back and be like, would he be this? Like say this, and even like one of the things was I had him accidentally apologizing like at the beginning of the book, and I was like, whoa, like this dude would not apologize to no one, and so that's like when he finally apologizes like at the end to Ariana for just kind of being a fool, like it has more weight to it because like that's something that's very challenging for him to do. But I also just really love brooding men. Like I absolutely adore them. It's my bread and butter. Moody, broody. Like I've watched a ton of like I said, like I watched a ton of anime. I watched a ton of Pride and Prejudice. I've read a ton of Regency novels, and like I absolutely love when they are just like sad sullen sad boys, and so like writing it was very fun. And also like even though I'm very bubbly, like I kind of describe myself as a sunshine and the storm. It's like I've dealt with a lot of things that are darker. I just don't always like lead up with that first, and so like tapping into that kind of well of deeper emotion is kind of one of the fun things about writing for me, or not fun, like cathartic things about writing for me.
Where was I? Okay. Was it hard writing Theo's point of view?
Honestly, it was kind of fun. Like it was kind of fun. Like he honestly writing him is so unhinged. Like writing him was so unhinged, but also like it was interesting because like when I wrote him in the first couple drafts, he didn't have a POV. And one of the things my beta readers were like, why is this dude like obsessed with her? And so going into his lore and his backstory, I was just like, oh, I was like, oh, like, and there's like the funny thing is like, I know like a lot more lore and backstory about like all the characters than I probably will ever share. Right. Like, cause I have to like really develop like, well, why did they do this? And why are they like this? And what's their favorite this and that, the other. Um, so it was actually oddly fun, and just kind of seeing him through another lens of his perspective was so fascinating because how he views the world and the choices he makes are so different from like Silas. And then the same thing, even like writing like Ariana versus Brielle, like how Brielle perceives the world and Ariana perceives the world are so vastly different, and how they deal with things are so vastly different. And so it's just like it's very fascinating to try to write from just those different perspectives.
Yeah, when I first read Theo's chapters, obviously, like first for the first read, I'm like, oh, I can't stand you. Like, why am I reading you? And then like after you read the book, and I had this feeling, so that's why I had to ask the question: would you say Theo was a victim as well?
I think he was, and I think it's kind of like he was. So like you think about like a like abuse, and it's like this is why Silas, Ariana, and Theo are all kind of like same or different sides of the same coin, right? Like, but all three of them suffered some type of neglect or emotional abuse from their parents. Like Silas was abandoned by his father. Ariana was heavily neglected by her parents. Like, and Theo was physically abused by his father, as we see it, towards the end of the book. And so it's like, how do people deal with that, and how do they turn out? And some people, like Ariana, she's an internalizer. She's like, I got to fix all the problems. I got to fix this. And that's why her whole like motivations was like, I don't deserve love. I don't deserve good things. I need to fix this. And I think Silas also came in like with more of a self-blaming thing, where like I think Theo like put on this huge like performance, his own mask of being like, oh, like I have all the great things and my father's great and everything's wonderful. And if I have all these possessions, then like I'll be happy. And I think even one of the lines that I wrote him saying is that she was supposed to love me. She was not supposed to leave me. And I think like there's so much deeper than having her as a possession. And I think even in his subconscious, he realized like he chose her because he thought she wouldn't be able to leave him. She would be beholden to him no matter how horrible he was. And I think that's why he desired her.
Yeah, I mean, after reading his chapter with his dad, I was like, oh, like no wonder you are the way you are.
Not saying it justifies it, but it just definitely,
Right.
gives you kind of a lens of like, what the heck?
Exactly. Which was your favorite character to write?
All of them. No, actually no. I love writing. I love writing all of them because they're all so different. Like I will say, like, I absolutely love writing Brielle, which is probably why she's getting a novella, because how she deals with things is so the opposite of how I would deal with things. And I've always said like Brielle's kind of like a wish. Like Ariana is more of who I am, and Brielle is more a wish of who I was. Like Brielle's just very like, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna say what I want. Like me, don't like me. I don't care. And I find it very, very like freeing to write her, because she genuinely just is gonna do her own thing.
She'll do what she wants when she
You
wants.
know, every time, I don't know if you watch House of the Dragon. Do you watch House
I
of the
haven't
Dragon?
yet.
So there is an actress on there who plays a high tower. God, I can't think of her name right now. My mind's going blank. But anyways, the actress's name is Olivia Cook.
Okay.
And every time I see her, I think of Brielle. Like
I'm
I
gonna
just
look
think
her up.
I'm gonna show you a picture. Hang
Yes,
on.
show me.
Olivia Cook.
Yes, that gives Brielle. That she totally gives Brielle vibes. Yes,
I've seen her. I'm like, oh, that's Brielle.
I love it. Fan cast done.
Now, which character can you relate to the most?
Like I said, Ariana's the one who takes over a lot of my personality traits, and so I relate to her a lot. Just because like how her inner thoughts, her inner world, like how she views the world is very similar to how I view the world. And even in like book 2, like, like she has like a very complex inner world, right? She has a very complex inner world, and she has a lot of emotions, but she also like tries very hard to like not show anyone those emotions and that weakness if she can help it. And like she has a lot of breaking down with Silas, because I think she's just so like done with everything.
It's over it.
Yeah, she's so over it. By the time that carriage rolls, she's just sobbing, because she's like, I cannot believe what is happening. But she definitely is probably the character I connect with the most. And I will say though, sometimes my like sunshine personality, like aspects I've written into Beatrix, right? Like that kind of like helpful, chipper, like cheerful parts. So they each kind of have like a little bit of like a touch of like me, or a whisper of me in their own ways, but definitely Ariana.
I think Ariana. I loved when Ariana finally got in that carriage, because I was like, girl, come on. Like, stop sacrificing yourself for the people you love. Like, I get it, but stop. Your character development in this book, amazing. I think that's why I loved it. I loved it so much, because it was so character driven. And I love books like that when I really connect with the characters. And you can really connect to all of them. But they kind of had to fall in love with themselves before they could fall together. Mm-hmm. Is that an aspect that you wanted to show?
Yeah.
Was it important to you?
Yeah, I think that a big part to me was like them overcoming something, right? And so it's like every book I've written, there's something for them to overcome. And I think for like Silas and Ariana, it was both like the sense of like self-loathing, right? And I think like Silas was much more quiet, because he liked to look so like put together. And I think Ariana's was a little bit more obvious, but I think that both characters just really struggled with caring about themselves and having an accurate perception of who they were. And I think that in that time of spending time with each other and kind of seeing their mirror, like their reflections to each other, I think they got to learn a lot about who they were and come to like themselves and care about themselves. And then I think that opened them up for loving each other as well. So, and that was a big part of their journey. And it's like the same thing with like Brielle's story is like one of the parts of like Brielle's journey is like, is she going to be able to find love again, right? Is she going to be able to open her heart again? Because Brielle's all like, just like having a good time. But you find out like there's such this deep need to hide from her past. And she's using all these coping skills to deal with like all the the thing she doesn't want to deal with. And so it's like, is she really going to be strong and courageous enough to face those things, or is she going to keep running from her past and, using these other coping mechanisms that like have gotten her through, but aren't really allowing her the depth of relationships I think she genuinely wants.
Definitely.
So we are excited to get Brielle's story. I can't wait for that.
I'm excited to give it. Like, if anyone wants to read it, I don't know.
I'm on your street team, so I'm hoping I get it. I'm just saying.
I'll be posting beta reader and arc reader stuff very soon. So I just need to get through this last like 5 or 6 chapters of edits.
Brielle, though, is like Silas's voice of reason.
Yes.
Within the first book. Can we expect like the same personality in her book?
So in her book, she does have she does play the voice of reason. So like the best part about writing her book is like it's a bridge book between book 1 and book 2. So book 1 ends at the beginning of winter. Brielle's book goes through winter, and Silas's book Silas and Ariana's book for book 2 starts at the beginning of spring, or like right before spring crests. And so you're kind of going to get to see things from Brielle's perspective of like what's going on in that time of like, we'll call it respite, and so there are things like, right, like she's dealing with like, you do get her interacting with Naomi and Ariana right before like, the funeral for their mother and stuff like that. And so you do get like kind of that stuff where she's kind of put in this position of trying to talk some sense into Naomi, and then Naomi is very fiery like she is. So there's a lot of like snipping back and forth. It's actually super fun. So you do get a lot of that. And there is some of her talking some sense to Silas, or arguing with Silas as well in her book. I think in this one, like Silas kind of not overrules, like that's not the correct term. I think he convinces her to kind of go with his line of thinking for once. And I think she begrudgingly does it, which is going to lead to some of what happens in book 2. So
I felt for her like the whole time. She was just like, just tell it true.
That's because everyone was like, why aren't you just saying what you need? And Silas is like, because she'll leave me if I do. I can't admit the truth. Yeah. I don't know.
Is Brielle's story still coming out like November?
It's November 1st, so it's going to come out the day of my anniversary. For Unmasking the Curse. It is going until a line copy edits in the end of September. I think it's 13 chapters. I'm on chapter like 8 right now of edits. So after this round of edits, I usually go through another listen through, and then I'll be posting for like a handful of beta readers just to make sure I'm not putting them in like a white space. I didn't accidentally miss something crucial. But because it's such a shorter story, I feel more confident in having it come out sooner than like the bigger book, because that's like a 30,000 page or 30,000 word book versus like 120. So it's just a much more manageable thing to write.
I was about to say 30,000 pages. Woo!
No, it's 30,000 words. 30,000 pages. Enjoy. Happy forever.
I was going to say, what? 30,000 pages? Lord.
It's going to be a long year.
It's going to be
nothing but Chelle's book. My God.
Now, I know we're getting it in November.
Yes.
And so can we still expect Brielle to be a part of book 2?
Yes. So
Okay.
she has an aspect in book 2. Like part of the reason why I introduced this book is because her love interest has an aspect in book 2 as well. And actually, so how this book ended up happening is I was writing the story, and I jumped like, 3 months, or I think it's like 3.5 months into the future from like the epilogue. And my alpha reader was like, who's this person? And I was like, oh, like, it's their love interest. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, there like anything else like you want to add? And I was like, oh. And so like I was literally like, well, I'm sure I can like just kind of come up with a backstory. And so I just started like writing, and then I was like, oh, like this is it just like kept going. And I was like, oh, like this is a whole story of their own. So I just like, well, I guess they're having the bridge novella then. Like, I guess that's what's happening. And sometimes that happens. Like characters are very bossy, and they are very loud, and like they're like Beatrix's love interest is very loud. Oh my God. Like very loud. And I'm like, wait your turn. Wait your turn. So,
Just give me a second
I'm
here.
not there yet. You're not there yet. My God.
That's so funny. I love it.
So I need to know this for my mental health. Would we ever get Uncle Oliver and Ophelia's
I
prequel?
think I think we really could get an Uncle Oliver and Ophelia prequel. I've thought about it a lot because she does kind of play a role, like her past plays a little bit of a role in book 2. And so I would definitely like to have that. I don't think I would write a prequel honestly until this series was complete or closer to done, just because I would want people to realize like that even though it starts before the book, like you don't want to read that one first, because like book 1 has like all the like it would get spoiled. Book 1 would get spoiled by the prequel. So, but there is definitely going to be a story about them eventually. They haven't been chatty. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want Uncle Oliver's story. Just saying.
yeah, no,
Put it out there.
I've had some whispers, but yeah, though, like I said, Beatrix is, yeah. And Naomi,
She's heavy,
Beatrix and Naomi's love interests are very, very loud.
She's like, they've taken over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if your book was a movie,
Mhm.
who would you cast? I'm very interested in Silas.
So Silas, okay, I can't now. I'm like laughing because I always forget his name, and like it's gonna elude me now. And I was gonna look it up, and oh no, I remember it's he's actually on the new Colleen Hoover movie. Justin, oh, what's his name?
I know who you're talking about.
Yes, I actually pictured him when I was writing Silas. I'm not even lying. Like that's totally the vibe. Totally gives me a vibe, but also obviously we have to like age him down a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
It's okay.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
She said, ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
But say like again, you'd
work
have
with
to
that.
age him down a little bit, because like when I was introduced to him, he was probably closer to Silas's age than now in his 40s. But we're gonna play in a perfect world because this would never happen. So like we'll just do in a perfect world. And then I would say in a perfect world where age wasn't a factor.
Definitely see that.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. And then and for Ariana, I always thought of like a young Amanda Seyfried has like that's very ethereal vibe. Yeah, so that's kind of who I thought. And then for like Naomi, I always thought like Ellie Fanning, again, like within the right age. And then Timothy Chalamet always came to mind when I was writing Theo all the time. I don't know why. That's what
See that.
I always imagined. Like it's just like that. I don't mean to sound bad, but it's like kind of like that. The like kind of like dead behind the eyes look. He's just kind of like you know, in some of his movies, and I was like, yeah, that totally is giving Theo vibes.
Can I just say that I love the new Wonka movie?
I haven't
loved
watched it yet. I haven't watched it. I'll have to
So
watch it.
good.
So those would be, and then I will say your choice for Brielle sounds great. We'll use her.
Olivia Cook.
I haven't thought too
love
much
her.
about like some of the side characters like Beatrix and like Duncan or Vince or anything like that. So those ones are a little bit more open ended. I haven't really spent a lot of time, but that's who I've always imagined for Ariana and Silas and Naomi and Theo, because they have like Brielle, that one sounds great. Brielle, I always thought about like Nicole Kidman from Moulin Rouge. I don't know why, like that always just gave me Brielle vibes too. So
Listen, I want this movie.
where's the time
This
machine?
cast is
Where's
like,
the time machine to the 2000s where we can make this happen?
Right? Oh,
Because I couldn't
Sounds
name
so
a
good.
20-year-old actor or actress right now to save my life outside of, Timothy Chalamet. Yes, I'm
I don't think I can name one either. I'm trying to think of one now. I'm like, nope, no one comes to mind.
Yeah.
Okay. We get a name at the end of book 1. I won't say the name.
We get a
But-
name at the end of book 1. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we expect him to be heavily involved
Yeah.
for book 2
Yes.
and book 1.5? Are we going to get a little?
He's not
or
going to be in
nothing?
book 1.5 at all. So I will say you do get a whisper I mean, not a whisper. Okay, so book 1.5, and because I already said this on my TikTok, like there is a scene that starts off right after the last sentence of the epilogue between Silas and Brielle. So you do get like an understanding of like what is going on with part of that cliffhanger. But where that name plays a role into it, you will find out along the way, but it's not going to come out. Like he does play a pivotal role, but it's not going to come out till like a little bit into the book. Like it's not right away, but you will find out like his importance. I'm trying so hard not to give it away. I'm just like,
listen, Silas was so uneasy at that end part. I was like, who is this man?
Right?
Who is this man?
Who is this man? Yup. He's someone important.
Now, how has your author journey differed from publishing book 1.5 to 2?
Like deferred to going and adding a 1.5 and instead of jumping right into 2. I think, like I said, when I was writing book 2, because it's in developmental edits right now, it was really just my alpha readers being like, hey, like this is a big jump. And also me not really wanting to info dump. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think for book 2, I kind of like, you read chapter 1 for book 2, right, Lizzie?
I did.
Okay. Because I kind of do this and I just kind of do this. And so like, it's a wild ride. It is a wild, wild ride. And, that's why Lizzie's just like, yeah, I know. Anyways, so
Now I want to know.
But if I wanted to start book 2 out the way I started off book 2, it made more sense to have a bridge. And so could you read book 2 without reading the novella? Yes. Is it going to have the same emotional impact and pack as much punch and also like explain a lot of the things that really have been set up in 1.5? Probably not. So it's like, how I look at it is like, if you jump straight in from book 1 to book 2, you might be like, oh, like there seems to be some missing points, but it's smooth enough where like if you read book 1.5, you're gonna be like, oh, you'll get like all the depth that I'm trying to convey without boring you all with like just info dumping like right in it. And so I think that's why Brielle having her own love story and getting to see these things play out and you know narrate them for us in her own Brielle way has been very fun, and it also adds like not levity, yeah, like a sense of levity to it, where there is still a lot of serious nature and the serious things that we're dealing with at the end of book 1 and before we get into book 2.
So I know this wasn't on the question, so I'm sorry.
No,
but
question away.
So we have Ariana and we have Silas, and they are both spoiler cursed.
Yes.
Are we gonna get more? Because basically, book 1, we find out all the lies, the betrayals,
yes,
whatnot,
all the things.
Are we gonna get more info about the curses? What exactly is going on in book 2?
Yes.
Awesome. Are we gonna find more people that are having the same issue?
Yes.
Awesome.
So yes. So how I kind of look at it is that I write in first person, right? And so in first person, you only know what you know. And so Ariana was so sequestered, and so was Silas, right? So both of them had their own, like, they were kind of like closed off from the world. And so in book 2, there is a lot more engaging with the real world. And even like with Brielle, like I'm working on a scene where like she uses some of the, you know, she goes through and creates a ring for Ariana because she lost hers at the end of book 1. And so we're going to get a little bit of that. And then also because of Brielle's experience, we're also going to get these like hints of like what she knows from the bigger big bad, the big bad, the real big bad that we discovered at the end of book 1. So
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Because I think
go ahead.
I think whenever you read book 1, like the whole premise of the book is very captivating, like with the curse and like, you know, especially, I don't want to ruin anything, I don't know who's in here, but like especially how their curses kind of come together. You know, so I'm kind of interested to see if that is more in this
I don't
world too?
know. I guess we'll have to see. All I'll say is this. All I'll say is this: is I don't do anything on accident. Like I don't. I'm like I don't know if like my readers realize like I do a lot of foreshadowing. I add in a lot of layers. I use a lot of different things to really try to tell a story, like the setting of, you know, like the setting of the weather or where the light hits or who's cast in shadow or the colors that they're using or the colors that they're wearing. Like I use a lot of those aspects and elements to try to foreshadow, or even some of the things that they say that seem like a passing statement but actually have a double meaning. So I work a lot on that, and so everything I do has a purpose. So if they had a connection, there's a
Look,
purpose.
she's the Taylor Swift of indie authors over here. Hiding
My
little
sister
Easter eggs.
actually, my sister actually says that she's like my yeah, she's very sweet. My sister also is just like very kind. So
I'm gonna have to go check my highlights after this live. I'm
no,
gonna be
I do like, and especially like in like I've hinted towards the future. I've no one's got it yet.
Oh, no. I'm gonna check. You're gonna see me here with a map, a
You're like the guy with all the lines in the back.
like, what's going on, Chelle? I crossed here to there,
But
I got this.
But it's true. Like it's like if I know like a lot of people, and it's just how I write and how I read, and like when I was writing it, I just really wanted to layer in as much as I could to try to paint a picture as best I could. When writing the book and when writing Brielle's book and writing book 2. And so, like I said, there's just these shifts I usually do. And it's never on accident. Like there's always a purpose.
So there's a big reason why we left on winter, huh?
Well,
Yup. And there's a big reason why it picks up in spring.
I'm gonna go look through highlights. I'm just curious.
She's gonna be messaging me, is this what it is?
I'll be like, does this mean anything to you, Chelle?
I don't know. If it does, no, if it does, I'm like, I don't know.
I can already see Lizzie. I'm like, okay, so I got this and this. Can you fill in whatever I got in between?
Listen, I ignore the crap out of her when I become hyper focused on everything. So I'm like, screenshot. What do you think that means? Did you get that note? Write that in that email.
I love it. That's so funny.
She does. It's so freaking cute, though. I love it. Because when she gets hyper focused, she gets hyper focused.
Oh, I am the same way. When I'm writing and my kids, well, not my kids. My kids I'm better with. My husband tries to talk to me. I'm like, do you not see my headset's on? I am listening to classical music and I am not here. I am in Prespin. We are not here anymore. This world doesn't
Silas is my
exist.
man. Go away.
Oh, this is like, also I'll say, Lizzie, to make you feel good, is that Ariana will literally do anything for Silas. Anything. That's all I'll say. She'll do anything. Whatever it takes.
That's good to know, though.
So I'm like, and I think like my dedication for book 2, just to kind of set the tone, is that like nothing's more powerful than a woman's love. Because that is true.
Also, look out for the Easter eggs.
Also, look out for all the Easter eggs oh no, I already thought of an Easter egg for Brielle's novella, so I'll just know like there are Easter eggs in Brielle's novella for book 2 already. So
I'm gonna be real hyper focused when I get that arc. No one talk to me. I was trying to read today, and my mom. I'm about to go back to South Carolina, and my mom had to come here, and like, I love my mom, I love my brother, but we're all Italian and we're loud, and I'm just like, oh my god, y'all need to leave. Like I can't. Like an hour. I'm on the phone with her, and I'm like, they've been here for 2 hours. They have to go.
I love it. That's funny.
It was the funniest thing because she was just whispering things to me. She's like, oh my god, please, like they need to go. I'm like dying on the phone because I can't see anything because she has me on pause. So I'm just like, and I can hear them in the background like really loud, and I'm just like, oh yeah, you can hear that Italian.
They're so. And like I have
Yeah.
my kids, like my kids know when like I'm reading and they're like, oh, it's quiet time. Like you can ask her,
Yeah.
like my kids are like, Mommy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but not my other side of the family. I'm just like, please leave.
And there's the door. It's reading time.
Right?
It's like, gotta go.
You have overstayed your welcome by 1 minute. It's time for you to go. Okay.
Sorry.
I know I literally got off of topic.
I know,
How
I was
many
like, where are
books
we?
I do that
are
all the
you?
time, and so you can just totally blame me. Like it's Chelle when she starts talking about writing, she hyperfixates, and it's just like that's it.
It's like,
And
we're going this way.
Yeah.
we're reading another book right now for something bookish, and like I've been hyperfixating on it because it's a shifter, and I
Oh,
love shifter books.
nice. Very
So
cool.
I'm like,
Oh,
I
I
want
have
to
to say
read.
something. I have to say something because I got so, and that reading that book is the reason why I was so like, what? When I was reading yours, because this is why I shouldn't read two books or three books at a time. And so I'm reading your book, and then finally, when the part happens when he shows, his curse, I'm just like, is he a shifter? Really? And I
I
didn't
mean,
want to ask Lizzie because I didn't want to sound dumb. I was like,
I
no,
could
I'm not
get
even going
that.
to ask her.
I mean, it's pretty pivotal. So, and especially if you're reading a shifter one, I mean, he does his own way shift, but not like that. But yeah, he has his own little transformation.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, ooh, I was like, that's interesting.
I love it.
Okay, so how many books are you looking in this series? How many
So,
can we expect?
so this is kind of my rough idea. So you have book one and then novella 1.5, and then next year we'll get book two, and then there's going to be a novella for Naomi and a novella for Beatrix. And then you're going to get book three because Naomi and Beatrix's novellas go parallel with book two. So like book two, I rewrote like twice because the side characters kept taking over. And I was like, you fools need to knock it off. Like, I don't even know what's going on with Ariana and Silas at all because you guys are just having your own little love story taken over. So I was like, and you get a novella and you get a novella. So like
It's like Oprah. You
so
get one,
literally
you
like
get
the time frame of book two, you're gonna kind of rewind and get to go through that in dealing with what Beatrix is dealing with and what Naomi's dealing with. Because there's a point where the stories branch, and you'll know it when you read book two. Like there's a very pivotal point where you're like, oh, like this is where we're gonna shoot off, and then Naomi makes her own Naomi choices, and Beatrix, yeah, Naomi makes her own Naomi choices, which is very Naomi. Sorry, I'm just like, I'll tell you this one. She is getting a loose Red Riding Hood retelling.
You know, I see Naomi as that strong, independent, like, don't mess with me
Yes.
type
Yes.
female.
And
I
that
like
does
that
play
about her.
in. That does play in with, and it's so fun writing like different love interests, right? Because it's like Silas is so brooding and it works so well with like Ariana because she is a gentle spirit, but she also has a tough exterior. So it's like she has enough gentleness to kind of like go with the flow with him, but also knows when to be like, okay, like we're not doing this no more. Where like Naomi and her love interests are just like that, like the banter, so much banter, so much tension. Like I said, she is definitely more into the schmink than Ariana would be, right? Like that's just her thing, her vibe. Where like Brielle has like a cinnamon roll like love interest, which is like actually perfect because she's so like just strong-willed and over the top. That it works with her. And then Beatrix has a cinnamon roll in the streets and alpha in the sheets kind of vibe. So he's super fun to
I'm
write.
so excited for Beatrix books because I feel like
he is probably my favorite.
she deserves that.
Oh, he's obsessed with her. So yeah, he is obsessed.
Yes. Love it. So we know you're going to be at Books and Beaches next week.
Yes.
I actually got Felicia to get me
I know. I
special
know.
edition.
You want to see it? You want to see it? You want to see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, ready?
It's so pretty.
Oh.
And then, hold on. I'll find one. There's methods to my madness, and then all of them have like their letters, or all actually like written like letters. And then I also put.
So pretty.
I worked really hard on this, so I was like, I hope people like it. And then some of the artwork is also in there. And then I just had a lady who's working on sprayed edges for the Kickstarter that I'm launching in September. So, yeah.
I'm so excited. Makes my little reader heart happy to get that special edition.
And she's got you all the stickers and bookmarks too that I only sell at my events. So
Are those the ones? Are they different from the ones that I got from the PR packet?
yeah.
Yay!
That's the only one that's the same as like this one's kind of just my standard all the time one, but here, I'll show you. Come on out. Okay, so you got pretty Ariana, but then you also got your dark Ariana.
Ooh.
And you got pretty Silas, but you also got dark Silas.
Ooh.
I just want you to know that when Kay got to the end of your book where everything goes down, she was like, good for Ariana.
Yeah.
So happy for her.
Yeah.
She's like, she had her waiting to exhale moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why.
Burn that sucker down.
And I will say, like, she becomes more unhinged in book 2. Like, she is.
Yes.
Fierce. She is like, it's very interesting because she still has a lot of things she's working through with the consequences of what happened, like emotionally, but like she knocks some heads. I'll just say that. Like she is vicious.
We love that.
She's basically the definition of
that's so
I'm
pretty.
healing. I'm not healed.
She is the definition of I'm healing. I am not healed. Yes. And then we got this one.
Oh,
and then we got
pretty.
This one.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Yeah, that will come with your pretty book with the dust jacket too.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So we know you're going to be at Books and Beaches. Do you have any other cons this year or next year you're going to?
This year I don't have any more cons. This is my last one, like a book convention. I am going to be doing like some smaller markets like here in Central Oregon, like at the end of the year. So a lot of times they have like crafter fairs and stuff like that, like as the holiday season. So I'll be doing 2 of those, which will be good. And then next year I'm going to 4 book cons. One of them is on the East Coast, but I can't say which one it is until they announce it. But it is not super far, I don't think, from you, Lizzie. I think it's like it's not in your state, but it's not super far. And that's all I can say. And then I am announced for Hot and Steamy Pacific Northwest in May. Love and Devotion in Burbank, California in June. And then they haven't announced it yet, but I'm pretty sure she is. So I think it's fine because she said I can send all the information. But I'm also doing a Fae Revelries in Bend, Oregon, which is where I live, is near Bend, Oregon. So those are the 4 that I've been accepted in. I applied for a bunch more, but those are the 4 I got accepted in.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We'll see.
I mean, at that point, you might have like 3 books out, right?
Yes, by that point I'll have 3 books out. Yeah, because I think book 2, my goal is spring of next year, unless like when I get it back from developmental edits and like trying to do the line edits, like something happens where my editor's like, this is a no.
I'm sure it's a yes.
So
she's probably like, okay, but you forgot about this Easter egg. You got to add that in there.
Well, it's funny because like when people like read, if people were to read my first drafts, they'd be like, what the heck? Like, because it doesn't sound anything like my lighter drafts, because like I don't add in that, like the layering and all those Easter eggs, and even like the word choices. I don't layer that into like drafts like 4, 5, 6. So those first drafts are just like, they're rough.
I don't know if
rough.
we actually had well, not we, but Ariana Isabella actually had a live last night, and she had like a bunch of authors on there, and like they were just giving advice to each other back and forth. And one of them said something, and I was like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense to do that. And he said that he builds his world before he builds his characters. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense to do it that way.
Those plotters are amazing, but us pantsers, we just gotta our characters just talk to us like a crazy person.
Okay. Our final question and our most important question. What advice would you give to a new indie author?
Oh, so much advice. I think that the best thing that I did with my book is I took my time. And I would say, especially for a new indie author, you just don't know how long it's going to take. And so I know a lot of indie authors will like set a date and be like, I'm going to do this book in 6 months, and then feel this like pressure to just like power through it, and then either be exhausted after the 6 months or the 3 months or wherever it was, or be like, or not really like where the book went, or feel like it could have done better or been changed in certain ways. And so one of the things I did that worked really well for me is I didn't set a actual deadline until I got out of copy edits, and I'm glad I didn't, because between developmental edits and beta readers, it took me almost a year to go all the way back through, because it needed so much work. It was so rough, like, and not saying anything bad about me or my writing, but it didn't have the depth that I wanted. And versus like now that I kind of understand my characters better, I understand their motivations better. Now writing like Brielle's story, I started in March, and like I feel really confident about releasing in November, because like I understand her, I understand the characters, I understand what their motivations are. But when you first start writing, like you don't understand like how long the process is between like all there's so many different layers of editing, and like so many different layers of like having people read it before you even publish it. And I just don't think, I didn't realize it until like I went through it, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is a lot.
Did you do beta readers the first time around?
I did alpha and beta readers, and then I did do a sensitivity reader, just because I did have some characters who are outside of my ethnicity. And so I just wanted to make sure I was treating them respectfully, and treating situations respectfully as well. And like, just in general, other situations that are more sensitive throughout the book. And with Brielle's, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter process, like I said, because it's just such a shorter book. And I've already gone through alpha readers and developmental edits. And then, like I said, I'll be looking for beta readers probably in the next like 2 weeks or so. But it's such a short book, I don't think it'll take people as much time as it did with book one, because it's 120,000 words. It was a chunkin' book.
How many, I mean, if you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but how many pages are you thinking for book 2? You said 30,000 words, right?
No. 30,000 words is the novella. So the novella will probably be about 100 pages, right? Okay. So like give or take like 100, 115. Book 2. So this is the weird thing, is that because I'm really terrible at adding my layers in before developmental edits, I'm not kidding. Like she'll be like, they're in just like the white void. Like, where are they? And I'm like, oh yeah, like
they're somewhere.
They're somewhere. No, like I'll put like very basic information, and she'll be like, why are you telling me this? Show me. And then I have to push myself, but it's part of my process. I have to get the story down, and then have someone like lecture me, and then I'll be like, okay, I know what I need to do. But book 2, it's hard to know, but I think book 2 will be as long. It might be a tiny bit shorter, just because it starts off and it just like goes like, and it's such a different vibe than book 1, because book 1 was just this like really epic, sweeping, like slow burn, like love story. And where book 2
It was a slow burn, all right.
yeah, it was the slowest of burns. Well, I tell people, I'm like, I watch
It was
anime.
the angstiest of burns.
I'm like, I watch anime where I have waited like hundreds of episodes for these two people to finally like admit their feelings. And I'm like, and I've gone through like my second series with them, and I'm like, just say it already. So I think like as an anime watcher and a manga reader, I'm like, but I'm like, it's something like, a couple hundred pages, but like, not like hundreds of episodes. So it's just like a whole different vibe.
What's your favorite anime?
Honestly, I am kind of obsessed with Fairy Tale. Like I actually like Silas, his like, and Ariana, their curse is actually kind of low key based on Grey Fullbuster. That's like because his
That
demon,
looks like Silas.
yeah, his demon slayer form kind of low key is based off not based but inspired. That's the word I'm trying to look at. Inspired by him. So yeah, I like that one, and that's the one too. Him and Juvia. It's like, just admit you love her.
Yeah, just say it.
Just say
Do
it.
it.
You finally
Well,
did. You finally did.
We absolutely love you, and we love your book, and we appreciate you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thanks for having me, and I thank you for reading and for joining me on this journey and just continuing to support me. As an indie author, it's a journey. I'm like trying to think, like an adventure. I don't know. It's so different because you kind of, your book kind of lives and dies by your fans. And so just thank you for supporting my work and for getting the word out there and for having me on and just for being awesome. Like, just being super awesome.
We hope you loved our
and for reading
videos.
chapter 1 of book 2 and not just yelling at me.
Not yet.
Like I said, just know Ariana's whole vibe is anything for Silas.
I won't lie to you. Unhinged feminine rage is like what I'm into these days. So
She has many moments in book 2 of unhinged feminine rage. I mean, I will say we do have a reverse damsel in distress situation for book 2. So there is a lot of her being the hero and being the damsel.
Gonna put my man through it. That's what she's saying right now. She's gonna put my man through it.
I am gonna put your man through it.
It's okay. We'll get through it together.
Just gotta trust in me. Just trust the journey. Just trust the process.
Trust the process.
Just trust the process.
Oh, I could just
thank
hear
you
the
again
text messages.
so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Chelle.
Oh no, thank you guys. Thank you. Well, I'll talk to you guys another time and have a great night.
Have a great
You
night.
too.
Bye.
Bye.